Hello, I'm Alex Harrison, the editor of Metal Bulletin. I'm here in London with Wiktor Bielski, a senior analyst for VTB Capital, also in London. Wiktor, everybody thinks that they know that the copper market is going to be in a substantial surplus next year. Why is that?
Well, I think, Alex, we've seen some very aggressive forecasts for supply growth next year. On the refined side, averaging 5 to 5.5%, maybe on the concentrate side as much as 7 to 7.5%. Clearly, copper demand is unlikely to grow that fast. Most of the consumption estimates are in the region of 3 to 4%. So of what's already an expectation of a copper market surplus this year, all that means is the surplus grows further next year. And I think we saw the numbers from the Copper Study Group forecasting about a 350,000 tonne surplus this year, growing to a 650 surplus next year because of that widening between supply and demand. And I think, for me, those supply forecasts are just too aggressive, particularly if you look at the historical context. Copper supplies always struggle to grow anything like as much as the forecast at the beginning of the year. There are always problems, typically. So I think those forecasts are just too aggressive. Okay, and I know you look at other indicators very closely as well. What about those other indicators also make you sceptical about this consensus about surplus? Well, I think the thing that's, in fact, for me, even more of a problem is that the demand for Chinese consumption has been really underestimated this year. Consensus is looking at something around 5 to 6% growth in Chinese copper demand. But if you look at the underlying indicators, the real indicators if you want, so first of all, Chinese semis copper production, and semis is the first point of consumption for copper in all cases, that's up 23.7% year on year in the first 11 months. Investment in the power grid, and power is 50% of Chinese copper consumption, was up 20% year on year in the first half. Air conditioner demand, air conditioner consumption up 15% year on year in the third quarter. So all of these underlying indicators are much stronger than those consensus forecasts for demand. And I think they're indicating something much more in the range of 11 or 12% year on year growth in copper consumption, which actually would be exactly in line with steel and with aluminium as well. So, it's unlikely copper would be lagging those by 50%. So I think the problem is that, the demand is being underestimated, and 11 to 12% versus 5 or 6 is a 4 or 500,000 tonne difference. And hey, that's actually the size of the copper surplus that's being forecast.
Okay, so the copper market could be much tighter than many people expect next year. What do you think the impact first on outright copper prices and secondly on the spread could be as a result?
Well, we've seen, the spreads in Shanghai, cash to threes on the Shanghai exchange, have been in backwardation since March. Copper premiums have been running at above $200 a tonne or at around $200 a tonne since the summer. I mean, these are historically high levels, and there's no way those are indicative of a surplus market. It's a tight market. At the same time, we've seen the LME tightening. We've got cash to threes in backwardation on the LME now as well. And if you look at the fact that 67% of LME stocks are on cancelled warrant, and what's left on warrant is largely held in those three exchanges, those three warehouses where we know it's tight, which is New Orleans, Antwerp and Johor, there's only actually 16,000 tonnes on the LME on warrant that's not in those three locations. So it's pretty clear that the market is tight already. If you see, as I think you will, stronger demand next year, particularly from China, supply actually not coming through as fast as possible, I think you're building up for a significant squeeze. And we've seen backwardations on the LME historically as high as $500 or $600 a tonne. Now, I'm not suggesting you're going to get to that, but I think you could easily get cash to threes running at $100, $150 a tonne in the first half at times. And I think that has to lead to higher outright prices because given the fact you've got record shorts still, particularly on COMEX, those shorts will have to cover. Okay. So, I think you could see copper prices, certainly at some stage next year above $8,000 a tonne again.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for that, Wiktor. So the copper market is going to tighten next year. Obviously at Metal Bulletin we'll be watching that closely. I'm Alex Harrison with Wiktor Bielski here in London. Thanks very much.